Welcome to Inspire Campfire, a podcast where ordinary people tell their stories of extraordinary adventure. These are campfire stories meant to inspire the rest of us to light the fire within, get outside, follow our dreams, and return to tell our own stories. Ready? Let's strike the match.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Scott Wurtzbacher, and today we're going to talk with everyday adventurer, backpacker, and storyteller, Elliott Costlow. Among some of the great stories Elliott has to share, I am super excited for this episode for a number of reasons. First, Elliott has climbed the mysterious Mount Washington twice. This is the highest peak in Northeastern US, and it has quite a reputation that we'll get into. Second, Elliott does the majority of his adventures without any human companionship, which brings with it a whole set of inner experiences that we'll dive into. And third, in point 2, I said he adventures without human companionship, but he does often go backpacking with his dog, Bailey. And I don't think we've talked to any guests on this podcast yet about adventuring with a pet, but I know it's something that so many of us do, so I'm excited to dig into that too. Elliott is an avid hiker and a backpacker from Poquoson, Virginia, and he now lives in Gloucester, Virginia. He has stories to tell, and I'm excited to share them with you all today. Elliott, welcome to the campfire.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Good to be here.
Cool. Well, I'm excited to dive into some of these stories. I think what we'll do is we'll start with Mount Washington. And that was, you and I had an hour-long conversation a week or so ago before we scheduled this. And that was one of the things that really piqued my interest because I grew up in the Northeast and I remember seeing the bumper sticker on cars that said, "I climbed Mount Washington." And I was always like, well, what's that all about? And I've heard about the crazy weather and you know, it's kind of an elusive, mysterious place for being only 6,200 feet high. Tell us a little bit about Mount Washington.
Well, as far as the weather goes, I believe that's what the mountain is most notorious for. I believe 4 weather patterns converge on it all at once. I've heard of it being used as a training ground for people who aspire to climb Mount Everest, Mount Rainier, even Denali, and it definitely has a neat reputation and a very deadly one too.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, you know, you go out west and it's like, you know, 10 to 14,000 is you know what the mountains out there get out to. I mean, we're only talking 6,000 feet. Like it's wild. Like, so can you tell us about Mount Washington and some of your experiences on it?
So the little bit of history that I know about that mountain is in the early 1600s, English settlers were trying to gain access to that land from the local tribes in the area. The tribes in the area they believe that a god lived on top of the mountain. And so to gain the trust of the tribes, an expedition was done to climb the mountain and, you know, I guess prove whoever, you know, they were trying to impress that they were worthy to come on the land. Accidents happen on that mountain all the time, every year, a lot of deaths. They say even on a clear day on the summit, you can see the Atlantic Ocean. And
Wow.
it was even mentioned by early settlers that they could see the white cap of this mountain from the Atlantic Ocean.
Wow, that's wild. So, yeah, it's just such an intriguing mountain, and I did some Wikipedia searching before we spoke as well, and I read that it's got the highest measured wind speed up there, not associated with a tornado or a cyclone. I think they
Yep.
clocked 231 miles per hour up at the summit.
Oh yeah, it's interesting too because at the summit they still have some of the original like buildings that were placed on the mountain, and I believe the one it's like a shed or something. It's like 30 or 40 feet long, and I don't think they built a foundation for it, and so it's actually has these giant chains and that are wrapped around it to keep it anchored to the ground. Because I mean, yeah, that wind is very wicked up there all the time.
Yeah, it's wild. The other I thought was interesting is that the tree line can be as low as 4,400 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of the harshness of the winds and such. Also, that the summit is considered an alpine or a tundra climate,
Yep.
which
And for that
again,
very
it's
reason, it's used as a training ground.
Yeah, it blows my mind that, I'm in North Carolina, and the highest peak on the East Coast is Mount Mitchell, and I think it's 68 or 6,900 feet. And I have been to the top of Mount Mitchell, and it's nothing like what we're talking about here, at least when I climbed it. But so you've actually climbed Mount Washington twice.
Hmm. Yes.
Yeah. Can you tell us about those experiences?
So my first attempt was a winter climb. I felt like I was sort of going out of my own element. I needed a challenge. I had a desk job. I got a guide for it, and I believe it was Mountain Guides. I had a guide from them. Very nice people. They got rentals and everything if you don't have your own crampons or mountain gear or whatever. I took off for that in the morning. It was early, about maybe 5 or 6 o'clock. Met up with my guide. We headed out, and when we stopped at Pinkham Notch, and it's like this place that has like showers, bath area.
Mhm.
It's for like through hikers on the Appalachian Trail because the trail is very close by actually. You have a gift shop there and everything, and we made our way up to the Lion's Head Trail, something like that.
Yeah.
And it's about a 4 mile hike, and it's
Okay.
constantly uphill. And that's even before you get to the base of the mountain. And then once you hit the base, it's literally just straight up.
So it was just you and a guide.
Yes.
And when you're talking straight up, what like describe this for us for listeners, because I'm super curious about Mount Washington, and is this something I want to do?
It depends on how adventurous you want to get.
I mean, when I hear crampons, like that's this is serious stuff.
Oh yeah, it definitely got technical. A couple places, and when I say straight up, I wouldn't say exactly 90 degree at a 90 degree angle, but if I had to, it was probably close to maybe 70, 80 degree angle
So you're
upwards.
you're roped with ice axe and crampons, and
Yep.
yeah,
At
you
least
would
for
have.
those sections, there were some sections that kind of like leveled out a little bit, but it was still. I don't think the angles were any lower than a 45 degree angle, at least not until we got up to the Alpine Garden section of the mountain.
So this was a winter climb. Is this a day hike? Is it an overnight?
It could actually be both. They have survival courses that teach you. Well, there's places that companies that teach survival skills and stuff, and they'll take you on the mountain for overnight to anywhere I think maybe 3 days or something. They have you spend the night. I believe some companies do that. You can do it in a day if you know what you're doing. I've seen people. I mean, these people are crazy, I think, but I've seen people ski down this mountain at some of the most extreme drops. I'm like, no.
Well,
No.
I read that so like a lot of when I read about the deaths that happened on Mount Washington, the two things that were noted was hypothermia because people are not prepared,
Mhm.
and ski accidents. So that plays into what you're talking about right there. Yeah.
Well, the biggest thing too about hypothermia is, especially on a climb like that, at least in that environment, something that I learned while I was up there. You talk about dressing with layers. You have your base layer, then you have a mid layer, which you should never really take it off unless it gets really warm, and then you have your outer shell, which is supposed to be like the last layer that you have that keeps you ultimately warm when it gets extreme. Some people don't wear the right gear or the right fabric. Cotton's a big one where it just absorbs your sweat. It doesn't wick off. When people go to shed their layers when they're getting hot, it can get really cold and really fast, especially with that wind. And that's where the hypothermia can kick in really quick.
Yeah. So kind of walk us through the winter climb, because I believe that you got kind of stalled out by some weather on that one.
Yeah, that and yeah, it was a little bit. It went from being like I believe like -9 degrees at the summit when we were below the cloud layer. Once we broke the cloud top, the sun was out. It was beautiful. Even some of the snow was melting off the trees. Um, I never got an accurate temp reading for that, but excuse me. But for it to melt the snow like that, it was definitely that. We were down to our base layer. It was that warm.
So it was -9, and it got warmer actually the higher you went as you got above the clouds.
Yeah, that wasn't until we started at the second dome.
Yeah.
at least it was like, I guess it's the last stretch before you actually get to the summit. Um, and we got to a certain point and there was the weather just changed. That's all it was. It wasn't safe to come back down. Like sometimes you just gotta, you get to a certain point and you can't jeopardize, you made it so far. It sucks that you have to turn back, but it was probably the good decision because I don't think I was prepared for bad weather, to hold it out, because it was supposed to be like a day climb, and weather can change on that mountain very sporadically.
And you said, so did the guide make that call?
Um, they kind of wanted to keep pushing a little bit, and with it being my first experience,
Mhm.
I have to say that I was very great that they were respectful. The guide that I had, she was respectful about it because she was trying to edge me on. Come on, let's keep going. You can do it. I'm like, yeah, and you get to a certain point too, and it's like, I don't want to make this guide have to take care of me if something happens.
Right.
And a lot of guilt and everything starts running through your head, and it's just like, no, like I tried to press on a little bit, but the more I saw what it was looking like and everything, I'm like, nah,
Yeah.
nah. It was enough to make me want to. Okay, yeah, let's just turn back. I just don't feel safe.
Yeah, so I'm curious. Okay, so this was your first experience on Mount Washington. Was there, but there were ropes involved, there were crampons involved, ice axe. Like, what level of training did you have to get like at the start before you started going up?
It was basically like a 20-minute rundown, of what we were gonna do. There was a rundown course before we headed out,
Mhm.
and then she briefed me more when we got to Pinkham Notch and everything. And for the most part, I mean, she instructed me as we went, as we climbed, and yeah, I mean, the only thing about it was very nerve wracking for being a first time and kind of learning on the spot, you know.
So can you tell us a little bit about the nerve, like what made it nerve wracking for you? Like what came into awareness for you as you were doing this?
Well, it became very surreal for me. The excitement and confidence that I had started, I think, trickling towards the beginning of the hike when we were actually making our way up that 4-mile incline to the base. I mean, it's very foggy out. The air is still. It's very quiet out, and you can smell the pine. It's beautiful. It's so relaxing. And then in the distance, you hear echoes of what sound like boulders, and then you hear rumbling. And then, the guide is like, because after I asked her, I'm like, so what is all that echoing and stuff? Because I'm like, it almost sounds like thunder. She's like, well, it's either falling boulders or it's small avalanches.
Yeah.
That's when it became very surreal for me about what I got myself into.
Yeah. Did you guys have to wear any kind of avalanche beacons or anything on that trip?
No, it was advised to pack like an emergency blanket, some form of. Well, I mean, I'm a little over prepared sometimes
Yeah.
too. So in case I did have hypothermia or if that was a
Yeah.
factor, you know, yeah, I felt like I was prepared to that matter, at least to survive. But an avalanche, there's so much debris and stuff that come down, especially rocks. You're not just getting buried in snow. You're not getting hit with soft powder. You're getting hit with everything that snow is taking out.
Yeah, totally. Well, this is what I think is so interesting about Mount Washington because, again, like 6,200 feet, like we have plenty of mountains about that size in North Carolina. And, you just don't think about it being like that. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why it's such a dangerous mountain. And they say, being unprepared is probably one of the biggest causes of accidents and death out there because I think people probably assume the same thing I'm assuming, which is, oh, it's only 6,200 feet. Like, how bad can it be?
Yeah, yeah. I think some of the things that people ignore, because like even though people might read about something or do the research,
Yeah.
I think confidence or maybe I don't know, maybe just being too sure of oneself kind of makes them skip over some things. And
Yeah.
I think sometimes too people forget, that survival is definitely something that can hit you from, go from 0 to 60 miles an hour real quick,
Yeah.
Um, as far as intensity goes, it could be beautiful and everything, and then anything could happen, and you're left in that situation.
Yeah. So, having done that climb in the winter, what are like a couple of the things that, from your perspective, people underestimate about that mountain now that you've been there?
Um, I think as far as that is just being prepared, both physically and like just not knowing, having the knowledge of what to bring in case something does happen. Um, they have a law now. I think they've had a law where, because of accidents occurring so frequently, that if you have to be rescued and they find that you were, not properly or adequately prepared for what you were trying to do, uh, you have to foot the rescue bill.
That's because enough people have had that situation. Yeah. So
Yep.
I guess like if we were to just jump to advice, just specific to Mount Washington, you said there's a certain level of kind of physical preparedness that you need. Like what advice would you have for somebody that's thinking about doing Mount Washington in the winter? What kind of level of preparedness do you think somebody needs for that climb?
Definitely some leg strength. Corey, you got to basically be strong everywhere. I think
Yeah.
it's for being my first climb. I felt like I was sort of in intermediate shape. Um, it was strenuous at times. Because you're just not used to using certain muscles. With your hand, your calves. Using those crampons where you will maybe only have two spikes in front of your toes holding you
Yeah.
upright. And just having to use your arms a lot and everything. It's different.
Yeah. So, but going with a guide, highly recommended. I'm getting that sense from you.
Yeah, if it's your first time, I'd highly recommend it.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the thing about Mount Washington. You can get to the summit by hiking, driving, or taking a cog train. And I think that's kind of interesting too. I mean, when you think about, the high peaks out west, the 14ers, like you're not driving a car up there. It's just
Mm-mm.
like something sort of like simplifies it or almost makes it seem like not as challenging. If I can drive a car to the top, like what is that piece like?
Yeah, and I would have to assume, well, because I've driven up that road too to get to Mount Washington too, because I've always wanted to drive it. It's another part of the mountain that I never saw before, and
Yeah.
I took a drive up there, and uh, it was nice going up and everything, but coming down, it's like hiking back down the mountain. It's harder. They have pull off spots because your brakes, you're on a very steep decline,
Yeah.
and your brakes get hot. They lock up sometimes. I think it takes longer going down the mountain than it does going up.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, can you drive to the summit in the winter time, or is that something people just do in the summer?
I honestly, I'm not sure. I know they have a weather station up there,
Yeah.
where they have, I think, a crew up there 24/7. I think they keep the road up there pretty as well, as well as they can maintain it. You grew up in the Northeast, so you
Yeah.
know how they prep the roads up there. But I would imagine on that road it's probably a lot of drifting in the wintertime, a lot of ice.
Makes sense. Yeah. Though they're a lot more prepared in the Northeast than they are where I am with the snow removal equipment, but I don't know what it's like going up Mount Washington. I do have to share real quick 'cause I told you a fun story when we spoke the last time, but Mount Mitchell, I had it's a similarly sized mountain in North Carolina, but of course it doesn't have the snow and the weather conditions. But a friend of mine and I were training for Mount Rainier out west, and we decided that we were going to climb Mount Mitchell in order to train for Mount Rainier. And so we spent the entire day traversing back and forth. I think it took us we loaded up our packs with books and did all this stuff to try to like really make the training a challenge. And we did all the traversing. And I think it took us like 5 or 6 hours to get to the top. And we got to the top of Mount Mitchell and we came out and we started to see a view. We started to see a vista, started to like feel that excitement of getting to the top of a mountain. And right as we came to the top of the trail, I looked over and I saw somebody sitting on a park bench eating a hot dog. And I look and they're sitting next to their car and I'm like, oh, we just worked so hard and you're telling me I could have driven to the top. I want to know, is that what it's like when you get to the top of Mount Washington? Because I don't know if I want to do it.
Oh, I don't know if it's if I've never been to Mount Mitchell, but I don't know how was it windy up there?
No, it was a summer climb, so it was really actually quite pleasant. I'm sure that guy was sitting there in a t-shirt and shorts, eating his hot dog, enjoying the view.
Oh yeah, I don't think it's that warm over in Mount Washington, even in the summertime.
Yeah, if I'm going to summit a mountain, I want that rewarding experience. I got to believe Mount Washington gives you that rewarding experience.
Yeah, and it's all in what you make it. It's like with any hiking trip, whatever you try to undertake, it's all in what you make of it
Yeah.
and what you
So,
learn from it.
so what was it like when you went back and did it again in the summertime? How was it different?
Well, I had a little bit knowledge, a little bit of knowledge of the place. I knew it wasn't going to be as tedious because most of the snow had melted. I climbed it in June, or yeah, it was the end of June or beginning of June. I'm sorry, and there were still remnants of avalanches that hadn't melted yet.
Wow.
And I also came down with the flu, so that kind of made it made it
Add
a
some
little
challenge,
harder.
right? Add a little
Yeah,
challenge to it.
yeah. And they didn't actually do any real clearing of the trails or anything since winter. Um, it was still early in the summer, I guess, for them. So I got lost a couple times trying to find where I wanted to go up, but I finally found my way up there, and it took me longer than I wanted to. I believe it from the time I started to the time I came back down. It was about, I want to say, like 13 hours.
Oh, wow. So
Yeah.
in the summertime, is it a technical climb?
Depends on what route you take. There's a couple different routes. I think at least the pleasant part of it was the one that I did was the Tuckerman Ravine.
Okay.
Or not Tuckerman Ravine. There's a trail. I can't remember. It's been so long, but some parts are just they have difficulty levels. I think at least that when I went there, that showed like how difficult certain trails and stuff were at that given time. So I tried taking the easiest one, and I think Tuckerman Ravine was the easiest at that point. So
But
that's the one I went.
no guide second time around.
No,
And so was there crampons, ropes involved the second time, or was it more of a hike the second time?
it was more of a hike the second time. I mean,
Gotcha.
there were some steep parts. I think it had to do with mainly. I think I got off trail a few times. Like I said, there were still remnants of avalanches. Debris from the winter and stuff that hadn't been cleared out. So it was a little difficult, navigating at first.
Yeah. Well, I want to get the bumper sticker. The I've climbed Mount Washington bumper sticker. I used to see it all the time as I was a kid. So
Yeah, they got a gift shop there.
yeah, yeah. So I appreciate you sharing about that one. But that's just one of your many adventures. What are some of the other hikes that you've done?
So I guess one of the most notable one that I've done quite a few times is it's the 70-mile Laurel Highlands hiking trail in Pennsylvania, Southwest Pennsylvania. I've done it quite a few times, a lot of sections of it a few times. I believe my first through hike of it was 6 days, 5 nights, and I want to say it was in the spring of 2016.
Okay. Yeah. So tell us about that one. The Laurel Highlands hiking trail, 70 miles. Tell us what that one's about.
So that was sort of like, I guess, if you will, my self-initiation into what I wanted to do with hiking and how far I wanted to take things. I'd never undertaken something like that before, especially, being basically roughing it for 6 days.
Yeah.
My pack, it was a military surplus. It was a Marine Corps IFLBE or something, main pack. Without anything in it, just by itself, it's about 8 pounds. And you know what they say, pounds equal pressure, pressure equals pain.
That's right.
My first through hike, I had about, I want to say between 50 and 60 pounds on my back.
Wow.
I had dressed with cotton layers in the summertime. I had good boots, Vasquois. I think that was the brand Vasquois. They're French.
Yeah.
It was, I think you saw from the Instagram post with the story that I included with that little clip. That second day was probably the worst day I've had ever in my adventures.
Let's go there. It's a fun story. So this is your first time like overnight backpacking on a multi-day trip, right?
Yes.
And this is day 2. And this is like, let's learn from Elliott, like how to prepare, right?
Yeah. So the first rule I would say is never wear cotton.
Okay.
Never wear cotton. That was the first mistake I realized on that second day. The second rule is probably do more research. At the time, I never informed myself, or I should say I never gained access to the information properly, where it was about a 19-mile section, I think, and all the water sources were dried up, and they were known to be dry through most of the year. I had about 2 liters of water that I had gotten from a potable pump, source at the campsite on my first night. Um, I quickly went through that, probably maybe halfway into the 19-mile hike, and my dehydration got so bad. Uh, Mouth got dry, couldn't sweat. Um, the fatigue, it was just different. I was even picking up pebbles and putting them in my mouth just to get some sort of moisture.
Wow.
Every time I cross like this, they have these maintenance roads, these gravel roads,
Mm-hmm.
at some intersections. And I would go up and down maybe 100, 200 yards on each direction, trying to find at least, a pothole with something in it. Couldn't find nothing. And about 5 miles before I got to camp, I look down to my left and I see about maybe 80 yards down this little mud puddle. I mean, it was so, I mean, it couldn't have been more than that big.
Yeah.
There's bugs in it.
For those that are just listening, you're talking like maybe the size of a small pizza.
Yeah, maybe,
Yeah.
yeah. Very shallow,
Yep.
very muddy, and definitely a smell coming from it. It was definitely there for a while, and so there were some bugs in it. And luckily, I had a water filter. It was a little Sawyer Mini,
Mm-hmm.
and you just fill the pouch up with as much water as you can fit in it, and then screw on the filter, and then squeeze it, and it filters the water. And I got about maybe a half liter from that puddle, which it got me the rest of the way to the campsite. But on that video that you saw on Instagram of me trying to light the fire with a flint and steel,
Yeah.
a friend of mine who dropped me off at the trailhead had given me that flint and steel and said, "I want you to use this and record it whenever you feel you're at your lowest during this trip."
Oh,
And because at this point he was like, he was trying to get me to film myself, but at the time I didn't want to bring a camera with me.
yeah.
Uh, and I also was fighting a staph infection during that trip, which is
Okay.
why I had that bandage on my left arm.
Yeah. You like the pain. You like to go after that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was something. I definitely learned a lot about first aid.
That's wild. So round out this hydration story there, or I should say dehydration story.
So I packed plenty of snacks. Even had some salt pills. Uh, I think at the time I eventually gained the knowledge to pace myself when I drink, or when I hydrate,
Mhm.
instead of chugging whenever I feel parched, or I need to quench my thirst. That's going to come naturally, and it's okay to take a couple sips here and there, but gulping your water down like that all at once, especially when you're really hot, um, it just makes you more thirsty.
Yeah. It's we can laugh about it now. You're obviously okay. But that's, one of the biggest dangers that happens to somebody when they're out on the trail, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And sometimes that too, you got to pace yourself. Same thing in wintertime. You can suffer hypothermia by sweating too much, and a lot of people don't realize that you have to move, instead of moving 80 to 90%, physical intensity. In the wintertime you drop down to maybe 30 or 40%. In the summertime, it could be the same thing. If it's really hot and humid out, even if you're in good shape, it's still good to just pace yourself. You'll eventually get there, maybe not at the time you want, but it's better to pace yourself rather than to rush.
So you started with about 2 liters to go 20 miles. So if you were doing it right, like if you were going to do that again, how would you do it differently?
So my second time I tried it, well, that got rained out. That was a terrible experience too. But the third time, I wanted to make I wanted to set a new record for myself. So instead of doing it in 6 days, my goal was 3 days and 2 nights,
Wow.
and it was definitely a lot better. And I brought along some supplemental drink powder and stuff, and um, that those added vitamins, that really helps too. At least keep you going. The only thing I forgot on that attempt was the hiking sticks, because I had shin splints on both legs
Mhm.
on my second day. So instead of doing it in 3 days, I had to do it in 4.
Wow. So, but was it the same deal where you had roughly 20 miles without a water source?
Yes, yeah, that time around, yes, it was very dry. It was actually a longer stretch that time around. Instead of camping out, there's a campsite about the first, after I think 6 or 7 miles in. If you start from the north going south, I didn't spend the night like I did the first time. I trudged through that, and the first day, I believe, I want to say it was 24, 25 miles. Um, I was definitely more prepared for that one. I think I only packed maybe 1.5 liters. Um, and my saving grace was I stopped at that campsite to refill, just in case. I brought a little extra with me.
Yeah.
And I think that really did save me.
So how much water do you need for 20 miles without a water source?
It depends on how hot it is. How well you're prepared as far as dress goes.
Mhm.
That third attempt, where I did it in 4 days, my pack weight was only about 20 pounds, maybe less. Even with my water and food, I packed very lightly. The only clothes I packed were, the ones I had on my back. Socks, big thing. Always bring tons of socks.
Yeah.
But that I was definitely better prepared as far as dressing myself, at least layers. Instead of wearing cotton, I had synthetic layers. I was definitely a lot cooler, I think. It was still just as hot and humid. And it was just, I think I'd learned a lot more since that first through hike, because I had taken other trips beforehand, and other day trips. And so I learned a lot. And so that's what got me through that attempt in such a short amount of time.
Got it. And for listeners, if they're just kind of wondering, I think no cotton is pretty standard backpacking rule if it's not like super dry. But what is the reason for no cotton on the trail?
Cotton doesn't wick your sweat away. It absorbs it, and it actually retains heat. You want something that wicks that sweat away, because even though it is used to cool you off and everything, it's also going to make your inner core, your inner body temperature higher, especially when you're doing physical, exercise and everything. And so you're trying to not use as much water in your body. So, things that wick away your sweat instead of, keeping it in, that's a lot better.
Got it. Yeah. It also doesn't dry out if it gets wet, right? It's harder to dry.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, you've done so many different kinds of hikes, but I think one thing that's super interesting to me is the fact that you do so much of your backpacking solo without human companionship.
Yep.
Is that intentional?
Yes, and I mean it almost has to be. I've taken a couple people out on hikes and everything like that, but a lot of the trips that I do, like multi-day trips and stuff, I prefer to be by myself, because I trust myself more. And not a lot of people are into that kind of stuff, especially the friends that I had while living up there. Um, that I could bring them along for day trips or whatever, or day hikes, short down and back couple miles, no
Mhm.
sweat.
Mhm.
But the multi-day ones, when you tell your friends about, hey, come on out, we'll do 12 miles the first day. It won't be that hard. They're like, 12 miles. I had a hard time running the mile when I was in high school. That's forget that. So, that's, I think, a big deal of it is, intimidation, I guess. It sounds almost intimidating.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
but
you use the word trust, like you trust yourself. I mean, you're out there for a reason. You're out there for yourself, and I guess maybe can you talk about the word trust there? Is it um that you're looking for this experience and you just basically want to make sure that somebody else is out there kind of at the same level able to keep up?
um, sometimes, I mean, I guess that's a small percentage of it, but the largest percentage of it is just mainly, I feel like I get the best experience if I'm by myself. Each trip, I always learn something new. Whether it's about my gear loadout, or something that I could have done better. Another thing too is safety. I know I'm prepared for what I'm, ready for, as far as, if I'm going somewhere, I've been there before, I know what to expect.
Mm.
Um, a lot of people don't think like that either. I have a personal IFAC for myself. It had, pressure bandages, tourniquet, a bunch of other stuff. And people think that's going a little extreme, when in reality, you know, sometimes you have to use that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't want to have to burden someone else having to possibly take care of me for maybe encouraging them to be in that situation with me unintentionally. So, another thing is, I don't want that guilt. If I'm inviting somebody and I make a miscalculation, because normally I do plan all my own trips out. I map everything out. I do my research and everything. And if there's something that I missed and forgot to tell the person that's coming along, I don't want that weighing down on me.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Well, also, I think when you're out on the trail by yourself, it's just a completely different experience because you're in your head and you're, connecting with nature as opposed to like kind of being external with another person. What's that like for you?
So you definitely learn a lot more about yourself, especially when you're able to complete, something that you plan out, you did on your own. You have the satisfaction of that achievement that you did your homework, you challenged yourself, you went in, saw it through, you finished it. Whether or not you made your goal of, when you wanted to finish it or not, you still completed it, and that's still something to be proud of because doing feats like that might be simple for some people, but a lot of people, it's doing something like that can be very life changing for them.
Yeah. You said you learned a lot about yourself. What kinds of things did you learn?
So, just trusting your gut instinct. If you feel like something doesn't sit right with with what you're seeing, and you think, okay, do I need to bring more water for this, or how am I going to ration my portions of food and water out for this next section of the trip? What am I going to do for at nighttime camping out? You think about all this stuff, and you're able to really you can accomplish a lot by doing what you think is right, if that makes sense. I don't know. It's a little hard to explain.
Well, I think the other thing is like for me, y- most of the adventures that I've done have been with other people. And I think there is some comfort in that. Like for me, if I feel like if I get into, you know, a situation, I've got other people there to help me through it. And it
Hmm.
almost, I'm like, it's a different perspective because what I'm hearing you say is like, you kind of have this self-reliance where like, you can get through it on your own. But I guess I'm curious because like a 6-day trip out there completely by yourself, like, what do you think about when it's just you for 6 days?
A lot of things. Sometimes you sing a lot of songs to yourself in your
Nice.
head. Sometimes you're verbal about it, and
Nice.
it's you could just look around. It's cool to just sometimes stop too and just look around and be like, wow, this is where I'm at right now. It's beautiful. I can't believe I'm doing this right now. Um, a lot of it is just encouraging yourself. Just trying to appreciate everything around you, no matter how small it seems. Like sometimes, like one time I had a butterfly that wouldn't leave my foot. I was taking my socks off and letting them air out a little bit, and I tried to shoot. It was a black and blue butterfly, and it just kept landing on my foot. Every time I switched it away, it just kept landing in the same spot.
I love it.
And so, I just sat there and looked at it, and so I was like, what, I'm gonna take a picture of this, and it was cool. And stuff like that. Even if it's like resting by a creek, just stopping, listening to the water, the birds, listening to the wildlife around you and everything, and trying to make out, okay, what am I hearing? That's a squirrel, right? Yeah, that's a squirrel.
I love this. Okay, so I want to pivot real quick because your Instagram handle is awfully energetic. And
Yes.
awe is AWE, awfully energetic. So, one thing we didn't talk about when I spoke to you the first time was that awe is one of my favorite words. And I've talked about that word a lot on this podcast. I've looked up the definition of that word, and my favorite definition that I've read is from Google. It's a reverential respect mixed with fear and wonder. And I'm
Yep.
just curious, so like that awe, what does awe mean to you? And obviously it's part of who you are. It's your Instagram handle. So yeah, I'm just curious.
So the reason I kind of went with that, it's you know, it does suit me, and it's just all to me means inspirational. It's something, in the proverbial sense, like breathtaking,
Yeah.
extraordinary, or irregular, I guess, if you will, something that normal people wouldn't go out and do. And whatever that normal definition is, I don't even know. But, just something extraordinary, I guess.
Yeah. So what kind of in what ways do you experience awe when you're out on the trail?
Sometimes it's the quietness and the simplicity of it. Um, sometimes you find yourself in a certain spot and it might just randomly hit you. And it could be when you're just hiking, you're moving, or it's just when you're stopping to take a break. You find yourself just in the moment, currently, and you just appreciate it more.
Yeah, in the moment.
And sometimes you just don't think of anything but, wow, it's just great to be here. And you don't really think of anything else.
Yeah.
And your senses go, sometimes too, if it's accompanied by certain smells, like pleasant smells, if you're near, some huckleberry or honeysuckle, I'm sorry, not huckleberry, but honeysuckle,
Mhm.
Certain plants, that have pleasant aromas, flowers and stuff like that. Yeah. If those are mixed in with the equation, it just, even if the sunlight hits you at just the right angle, or even a breeze.
I love that.
Yeah,
That
it's definitely something you can appreciate more.
Yeah, I love that. That is definitely just being in the present. That's super cool. So, one thing a couple of months ago, I've done a lot of adventure experiences, backpacking, different things, but like I said, I'd always done it with other people, and that's why I kind of went down this line of questioning because I did my first just 2 nights backpacking pretty recently because I wanted to experience that just being out completely in the wild by myself. And that's why I'm so intrigued by this conversation with you. Like, because I think I learned a lot about myself. And what I found out there was, I mean, there was fear, especially like the very first night, just being completely out there by myself in my tent. I think I was like, I don't know, 6 or 8 miles from a trail, like from like anywhere if I was to try to, go back to get help. I mean, I was pretty deep. And I mean, I just remember hearing every sound. I mean, every little twig that would fall from a tree, I mean, sounded like an animal or something. And it was just like, so I guess, and I would say that the second night was easier than the first night. So maybe it just gets easier, but I'm just curious, like for you, how does fear play in? Or does it still play in? Did it
Yeah,
ever?
yeah, fear definitely has to be a factor into it because you'd be crazy not to have fear. Uh, sometimes you can run into wildlife, which I've never had many, run-ins with dangerous wildlife. Um, I've had a couple encounters, but for the most part, they're usually gone before you even see them. Especially if you're singing or whistling or whatever. Another thing too is sometimes you don't know who's hiding out there. There's some crazy people out there nowadays, and it's I during my times when I was hiking and stuff, I had a concealed carry permit. At any given point, I'd have either a Glock 19 on me or a Diamondback 380, depending on just what I was going out there to do. So I mainly carried not for wildlife. It was mainly in case I ran into somebody who wanted to do me harm.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing right there is yes, the fear is there, but I come prepared.
Yes, yes. I refuse to be someone make a movie out of me. You know, It'd be a horror movie or something that where they go in unprepared. No, I'm not that person. Nope.
Oh, well, you're foreshadowing the movie piece, but we'll get to that. People that have listened to this podcast before know that that's coming. So you did talk about a couple of encounters. So you said you haven't had many, but I know we had a fun conversation about a wildlife encounter that you had and an encounter with humans. Can you share those real quick?
So yeah, I'll share the first one, the animal encounter. I was doing a quick day hike. It was I believe it was called Roaring Run Natural
Yeah.
Area. Very nice day hike. I think it was only maybe 12 miles that I was doing. Um, very very smooth hike. It started getting overgrown in some spots. I don't think a lot of people use certain areas of that hike or that hiking trail because it's so far back away from like access points and stuff. So I don't think it sees a lot of maintenance. Even though they do have like spots painted on trees to make sure you know where you're going.
Yeah.
So I'm going down the trail, and mind you, I'm carrying the Diamondback 380 on me, but it's my little ankle gun. It's something I can barely feel when I'm hiking. So I'm going down the trail. Next thing you know, it makes a sharp left, and as soon as it did, I mean, the grass went to being like almost like I'm 6'8", and it was almost this high on my chest.
Wow.
And I got maybe, I don't know, 15, 20 feet in, and it went from being that high to maybe waist high. And as soon as I hit that clearing, I see this big black thing, just this big black bear just sitting there, like, just sort of surprised. And we both just sort of stared at each other. And I don't know how long it was, but I saw it, jump up to get on get on two legs and, or to stand up. And as soon as I saw that, I immediately just went right down to my ankle. Like I just boom, just real quick. And I drew it up. And as soon as I came up, that bear had already turned around. It was about halfway down the trail. So I guess that sudden movement might have spooked it, but yeah, I'm not going to be some animal's food.
Well, you're 6'8", and yeah, he was probably more scared of you than you were of him.
Yep. That's
Yeah.
why I don't really fear wildlife out there. Even by myself.
Yeah. So, and then you said you had another encounter that was not wildlife related. It was more human related. And this just kind of speaks to the different things that you can experience out on the trail.
Yeah. So this encounter happened on the first through hike of the Lower Highlands hiking trail that I was telling you about earlier. I had my Glock 19 on my waist strap on my backpack. So it was open carry. Easy to access. So I'm walking down the trail. I'm a little bit past the halfway point, and from the map that I had, there wasn't really any roads or any residences within at least 10, 15 miles at least. And so I'm walking down, and it starts opening up, and I see this person in the distance, maybe 200 yards off. I could see him. Well, not 200, maybe 150 yards. I could see this bright red shirt. I'm like, okay, that's a little odd, because you run into people on that trip a couple times here and there, not too many times, but they have a certain look to them, and you get used to that look. So, obviously, if something stands out about someone that's coming towards you, especially in the middle of the woods like that, you're going to be a little cautious and observant. And the closer I got to this guy, I saw he had gym shorts on. He had a very long red shirt. His tennis shoes, he just had plain tennis shoes. And I'm thinking, like, where is this guy going? He has no backpack on. He has no water, and he looked a little rough, not gonna lie. And my instinct said, don't go down the trail, go around. Like, it's clear. You have a good visual. You can still watch him, just, go around him. And I went off the trail maybe about 15, 20 feet. And he had this glare about him. And then I saw his eye movement, and it went down to my waist. And when he saw that, he just, I nodded heads with him, and he was like, "What's up?" I'm like, "Hey, what's going on?" And we just kept, going our separate ways. And I kept checking behind me, because at one point I thought I heard, the leaves crunching and stuff stop. So I was definitely on edge for that.
Yeah.
And I later found out a couple weeks later, that person had, I think he was an escaped inmate or something like that. And he was being looked for.
So it was good that you were prepared on the trail.
Yeah. If it might have been a little different if I hadn't been armed, because I'm pretty sure he definitely had to have seen that I was armed. And if I hadn't been, if he had noticed that, I think, my supplies, that my hike probably would have been done at that point.
Might have been a little bit different. Yes. And there maybe is a reason to hike with other people, folks. But as we pivot to that, the last thing I kind of wanted to just chat about was you do, although you don't often hike with other humans, you do hike often with your dog. And just wanted to just kind of touch on that briefly.
Oh yeah, she's definitely a good deterrent as well. But she's friendly if she gets a good body reading of me. Her name's Bailey. She's a half Dutch Shepherd and German Shepherd, and right now she's about 6 years old. Well, she'll be 6 in February.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've taken her on a few overnights with me, and she's definitely anxious. She's always on edge. She's even barked at a chipmunk that randomly popped its head out of a log when we were walking past it on the trail. It definitely wears her out, and she never sleeps at night. She's always on edge. She's always on point. And, the best thing about that too is, even though she has a ton of energy, when we get home from those hikes, she sleeps for a whole day or two.
Yeah, I love that. So what's different between just being out there completely by yourself and being out there with your pup?
Well, the pup, I have her own, she has her own Molly vest that I pack her. She carries her own stuff like I do.
Oh, cool.
I'll carry a little extra, like a leash, her leash that I'll tie her to, or whatever. But for the most part, she carries her own water, her own food. It gives her a little bit of a purpose too. And it's the companionship. Sorry, is very nice because she she is a conversation starter. She does bring people. Like if there's other people at the campsite, they'll be like, oh, they want to be around her and everything, and that's a good conversation starter. But at the same time, um, it does, it does help with being more comfortable and knowing that you have something that's going to wake you up if something goes wrong or if there's someone or something that isn't supposed to be there.
Does give you some additional protection. But in terms of like hiking with a dog versus hiking with another human. So when you're by yourself, you're in your head, right? When you're with another human, you can have conversation, you can talk, like it kind of brings you out of your head. What is it like with the dog? Like, are you having conversations with the dog or are you
No,
still in your head?
yeah, so like the only time I really talk to my dog is when I'm encouraging her because like she doesn't really like going across bridges.
Okay.
There's some crossings that we have to do, and it's sometimes I have to be like, it's okay, Bailey, you can do it, and
Yeah.
that she'll if she sees me doing something, she'll follow suit, or that's not if she's right in front of me, because she's so excited. She definitely makes going up hills a lot easier because she really wants to get up top of them. So, in that regards, it's kind of cool. It's, I don't really talk to her, like I said, but, it's fun to watch her. You know, it, it is a little distracting because I'm a little more observant when I'm in the wild, out there in the wilderness doing my thing. But at the same time, it's, cool to watch her because, she'll find something, she'll sniff it, or, she'll catch a sound, stop and look around and everything. And, it's like, you want to be like, what'd you hear? What'd you see?
Yeah,
You
totally.
know,
Well, I think I saw her nose maybe point out a little bit behind you there. She's awesome.
yeah,
Uh,
she was looking out the window there.
so yeah, so Elliot, for people that maybe are hikers but haven't done overnight backpacking, haven't done multi-day trips, but are intrigued and maybe want to give it a shot, like what advice would you have for those folks?
I would say, you know what, you got to start somewhere. Even if you have to do, wear jeans and work boots or something. Throw stuff in a pack, go out for a day or a night, and pack a sleeping bag or whatever. One of my very first overnight hikes I did in work boots, jeans, and a flannel and a t-shirt.
A lot of cotton.
Yes, luckily it was wintertime though, but
Yeah,
yeah, it was, a little difficult, but yeah, you got to start somewhere. So, do your research. If you Google, the internet is one heck of a tool these days. You can
it
learn
is.
almost anything on there. Even if you have questions, you just type the question in the search bar. But if it's not, if that's too complicated or whatever, like I said, throw some clothes on, get a pack together, and you know, head out there. Do what you got to do.
Most important thing is just to get out there. All right, so we you did some foreshadowing a little bit ago. You've already indicated that you don't want to be in a horror movie,
No,
but
well, I
you keep
refuse to be it, or at
but
least the victim.
but you can't you refuse to be the victim. I love that. Okay, but you keep doing these epic hiking adventures, and at some point Hollywood's going to make a movie about you, and when they do, I want to know who's going to be the Hollywood actor that's going to play you in your movie.
You know what? It's a tie. It's a tie between Johnny Depp. I like Johnny Depp.
Oh, nice.
And you know what? Because he is a little younger, and he's done some couple few good movies. Adam Driver. You
Love
know,
it.
I
Adam
think he's around
Driver.
my.
Okay.
I think he's a little about the same age as me too. So it'd be
Okay.
fitting.
All right. Very good. All right. Johnny Depp, you could maybe it could be like multi-year. You could start out like young, like Adam Driver could be young you, and then we could move to Johnny Depp as you get older.
Yeah, that'd be
What's
interesting.
what's your movie going to be called?
You know what? Probably just energetic.
Energetic. I love it. Awfully Energetic is your Instagram handle. If people want to find out more about you, is that the best way to do that?
Yeah, it's awfully_energetic. I also have a little YouTube channel. Not hasn't really seen a lot of activity on in a while, but if you ever want to watch some of the other videos, it's called Outdoor Voyages. Um, there's a lot of other cool hikes that I've done on that channel, and you know, uh, I was kind of convinced to start recording myself doing these trips, and if it wasn't for a couple of friends who sort of gave me that confidence, because
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to, film myself. It'd be embarrassing. I don't want people to know what I'm doing, But when I started out, a lot of people were like, hey, it made me feel like I was right there with you. That was so cool. And I was like, oh, okay. Thanks, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's the cool thing about this is like you get outside, you go do these adventures, and then you get to come back and tell people about it, and it inspires other people. So I'm excited that you got to share some of these stories with our listeners today, and hopefully they've been inspired. As I say, those listening, I hope that you've been inspired today as much as I have. I hope Elliott's story has encouraged you to listen to the voice inside that calls you to adventure, because we want to hear your story next. If you have a story to tell or just need a nudge to create one, please send me an email. We'd also appreciate it if you'd help us spread the word by leaving a review and sharing or tagging Inspire Campfire in your social media. And until next time, I want to encourage you to get outside. Thanks for listening. Elliott, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, it was. Thanks.